Hello there, BookTube. My name is Daniel. Welcome back to my channel, Guilty Feet. Put 'em up, put 'em up. I've got no rhythm, and today I'm going to do a book review. But there may be. I don't do. Try not to do plot spoilers. But what I think I'm going to do with this book is probably do a sort of genre spoiler. So if you don't want to know anything about the book, don't watch this review. There are plenty of other reviews to watch. But I am going to talk a little bit about what kind of book I think this is, which came as a surprise to me. So you might not know it when you think you pick up. The book I'm talking about is Northwards by Daniel Mason, and this is where I'm going to spoil it in terms of what kind of book this is. So switch off now if you don't want to know more. It's a ghost story. Now, why do I say this is something unusual? Because I think if it had been pitched to me as a ghost story with a sort of deep a ghost story minus the macabre, I would point out. It's not a scary, spooky, jump scare kind of ghost story, although there may be one or two little minor sort of literary jump scares in there. But it's not macabre, and it's not a Christmas Carol, but it is a ghost story. And why do I bring this up? Because Brian at Bookish did a review of this last week, or at least at the end of the week, and I was still reading it. I had 70 pages left to go, and he had finished the book, and he wrote, he did his review, and then I left the comment saying, yeah, and the fact that it's a ghost story and blah, 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 and I had 70 pages left in the end. And he responded to me saying, yeah, I guess, it turned out that way. And I understand, so he was only relating to it as a ghost story after he finished the book. And certainly the 70 pages that I had left when I finished it 2 days after I had left him a comment, it really doubles down on that whole ghostly aspect of it. But so again, apology if you watched this and you didn't know. If it had been sold to me as a ghost story with a sort of psychogeography twist to it, I might not have picked it up. I picked it up because it was on a lot of end of year best ofs, and it appealed to me as work of sort of in vogue work of literary fiction, and I got it half price in the UK. This is the UK edition. I think I prefer the US edition, which has got the mountain lion, the sort of catamount that's in the story, is on the cover of the book, where this is, I guess that's one of the Osgood sisters carrying an Osgood wonder there. But I picked up as a work of literary fiction, but as I say, it is a story about place, about Northwoods, and the people that inhabit it over 400 years, I think, starting sort of pre-Revolutionary War, right about the time of the Revolutionary War, up to the modern day. But the spirits linger. The place becomes inhabited and civilized, and as the people pass on, nature takes over again, and then humans try to reinsert themselves, and nature is always fighting back. And there's lots of great nature writing here. I guess of a piece with, just recently I did a review of The Vaster Wilds by Lauren Groff, and in there I referenced Jesmyn Ward's Letters to Send, both of which are deeply involved in the natural world and the world around us as Northwoods. I think in terms of as I say, the psychogeography in this kind of sort of haunted and haunting work is similar to if you read Max Porter's Lanny, that old Papa Toothwort, was it? And I mentioned that because I just read, I haven't reviewed it yet, Max Porter's most recent book, a book called Shy, which is also a slim volume, like Grief is a Thing with Feathers, like Lanny. Shy is probably the least of the three, but also has that sense of place and that sort of man's link to nature, which is slightly heightened and slightly metaphysical. And that's something that's going on here. The other thing I think people haven't spoken about enough with Northwoods is how funny it is. This is a funny book. This is a book that's very light on its feet. So there are some sort of ghostly presences, but we follow over time different vignettes. So the first one is the biggest story, the story of Osgood coming back from war, and all he wants to do is build an orchard and harvest apples, and then we see what happens to him and his two daughters that take over his legacy and continue it over many years, and then the rather shocking things that happen to them. And that's the end of that first story. It's probably the longest of all the stories that we have. But following that, there are a series of different vignettes, narratives, including one extended thing where piece where we follow a bug as it buries itself, as it looks to mate and buries itself in a tree and releases pheromones, and some other bug comes along and finds out. And a whole extended love story, insectoid love story, which is brilliantly written and very funny. And lots of this is very light on its feet. There's a later episode involving true crime magazines and weird bodies being buried in the woods, and who's going to discover them. And it's really all about the ego of the person who's made the discovery. And it's lots of great interlinked stories. And if you like interlinked stories, this is as good as any. But as a humour, this sort of weird but not scary ghost story, and this. The part that it takes very seriously is man's relationship to nature, nature's relationship to man, which has dominion over the other. And I thought a perfectly delightful read. I really enjoyed it. It turns out not been everyone's cup of tea. It had some very positive reviews towards the end of the year, and then some people who read it have been slightly disappointed. I read it and just lapped up every bit of it. So it gets a very strong recommendation from me, but other opinions are available. I hope you're keeping well. God bless. Bye.